Hi there, everybody out here in the Unity Church room here that we use. Love streamers out there. Great having you on this rainy day. It's all good. Snow's leaving. So we have a few announcements before we get started with Nancy Fitzgerald, who's going to be leading us today. We're very excited. Anytime we can have Nancy get up here and inspire us and help us along with our journey. So apparently, there's a presenter series that begins April 1st in the Transformation Room with Bill Free being interviewed by Lisa Natoli. So you get on the waiting list and doors might be open for one day depending on the interest. So let them know. And the theme for 3 months is the embodiment of Christ. So that's probably on the Transformation Room information. So we have 5 or 6 tickets for the Boston conference that are resales for $499. And you can get those on the website, Teachers of God Foundation, until they're gone. Which, this is it. It's coming fast, and we've been looking forward to it now for a year to be in Boston. So I'm excited to see everybody there. Definitely. The current 40-day has a group launch with about 900 people. And the next group launch is scheduled on May 8th. And go to the website to get on the list. So a lot happening there as usual. So I don't know where we're going from here. Are we going to do Cafe Gratitude now or? Okay. Andy's rushing up here to give us the wisdom of the day, which is awesome. Thank you, Andy.
Clap, 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 clap. Applause, applause. Good morning, everyone. The reading for the day is from Khalil Gibran. I hope I said it right. Inspiration is in seeing a part of the whole with the part of the whole in you. And the question for today, what in your life do you take for granted that you can now express gratitude for? I take pretty much everything for granted if you think about it, but I'm grateful for all of it. That's it. Are we going to do our hugs and greetings? Okay, we're all going to get together and have our little love fest. Everybody on live stream, we love you. Can't do it without you. Thanks.
We're like a short little group today. This is like a hello. I know. Well, namaste, Eddie. Namaste. Good job.
I know it. We're on.
Namaste. Namaste, Eddie. Oh, there we go. That's like a blue. Okay, so Andy, I think you'll have to be the MC and you'll have got it back to the chair.
All right, small group. It's short love fest.
Bring your love back to the chair. So I'll do it.
Yeah, right.
I have enough jobs.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. Short Love Fest, rainy day. Okay, so without further ado, one of our mighty companions, Nancy Fitzgerald, is going to speak to us today. Nancy?
my mic working? Sounds like it. We're on. It's rainy here, but it may not be rainy where the love streamers are. And the lesson that I chose to talk about is I Will There Be Light. What a great match for today. This lesson, if you were doing it in chronological order, was last Thursday, and it landed for me. And so I decided this is the one I would focus on. The next day from that, I was getting on a plane really early and going to Florida to spend time with some people that I used to work with, some women that now call themselves the Babes. It was at an engineering company, 100-year-old engineering company, the Aluminum Company of America. And when one of the guys heard later that that's what we'd come to call ourselves, he looked at one of the ladies and said, "If we had called you that, you would have killed us." And he's right. At that time, we would have. But now we get to call ourselves that, and so it's fun. But this phrase, "I will there be light," is part of what I held on to for that weekend. I realized we hadn't seen each other for a year and a half. We usually get together at least once a year. And we've known each other for at least 25 years. So we have long history of knowing each other and changing and being at work together and comparing experiences and learnings while we were there. And I realized that in the last year and a half, I feel like I have gone through a pretty big transition. I've changed pretty much, and I was started to think about, well, what's it going to be like when I go back to these folks who I met when we were all concerned about experiments and data and proof and corporate impressions and being among the small first wave of professional women hired in this company. And I made up some stories. So I had some worries, I had some concerns, and when I got to this lesson, the day right before I was traveling, this was the lesson, and I thought, okay, when I start thinking, well, maybe so and so will think this way or decide that or see me as whatever, flaky, loose, no longer fact-based. I would say to myself, I will there be light. Sort of like, okay, I'm not going there for a great length of time. It wasn't like I didn't return even during the weekend, but I thought, okay, I'm not staying there. I don't like what I'm doing to myself and how it feels and how I'd be with my friends if I kept that idea. So that was my mantra for those few days. I will there be light. I was also attracted to it because one of the things I like about A Course in Miracles is the idea that we get to choose. We have free will. That's part of the reason we're in the mess we're in, right? We get to choose. And so we come here on this earth, at least. We don't know how the other planets work or the other universes. And our commercials send us things that we should be worrying about, like how it looks, how you feel, what medicines you take to fix things, all that ego kind of concern. So we're really immersed in it. And part of what I have found for me, the journey for A Course in Miracles and A Course of Love is to realize that nobody else is doing this to me. Not only can I choose, I have to choose if things are going to be different. So when I find a lesson that says, I will there be light, that word will used in that way says to me, I am choosing to exert my power, my personal power for light, and have it be light that I focus on. I'm on lesson 73, which was chronologically for March 14th, if you did it that way, but not too long ago. So I'd like to go through it some, and I'm using the purple book. I've finally converted to the big fat one that's also more interesting. And here we go. I will there be light. The first thing that is on there is a footnote about the quote from Genesis that said, "And God said, let there be light. And there was light." So in this case, Jesus and the plan of the Course is having us declare that for ourselves as an extension of the creation of God with very huge powers that are hard for ego to accept and even imagine are there. So I will there be light. And that puts my commitment, my choice, my energy into light. Today we are considering the will you share with God. This is not the same as the ego's idle wishes, out of which darkness and nothingness arise. The will you share with God has all the power of creation in it. The ego's idle wishes are unshared and therefore have no power at all. Its wishes are not idle in the sense that they can make a world of illusions in which your belief can be very strong, but they are idle indeed in terms of creation. They make nothing that is real. So if it's a wish from my ego-based thinking, and I haven't paid attention to what I'm using my power for, then it does have an effect, or it seemingly effect. It's what I see in the world out here all the time, then, however I experience it, whatever it is. Idle wishes and grievances are partners, grievances, or co-makers in picturing the world you see. The wishes of the ego gave rise to it, and the ego's need for grievances, which are necessary to maintain it, peopled it with figures which seem to attack you and call for righteous judgment. They become the middlemen the ego employs to traffic in grievances and stand between your awareness and your brother's reality. So when I carry a grievance, like the kind of things I made up before I went to visit my friends, maybe this person won't be able to accept where I am now, or that person will see it as such and such, then my connection, my unity with even my friends can be jeopardized because of what I'm letting run around in my head. So when I have the phrase, I will there be light, and I can come back and touch base, and that reminds me I have the choice. I can choose to use my will in a different direction, and I'm going to do that and see what happens. And actually the weekend went well. Continuing. Your will is lost to you. One more sentence at the end of paragraph 2 on page 1072, lesson 73, if you've just joined us. Your grievances become the middlemen. The ego employs to traffic in grievances. Now your judgments, your righteous judgments become the middlemen your ego employs to traffic in grievances and stand between your awareness and your brother's reality. What's really true about my brother or my sister is that she or he is the same as me. We're all the same. The important things are all connected and the same, and the things that I choose to focus on as differences are often the kind of things that allow me to get irritated, pissed off, angry, agitated, not thinking so straight. So when I can notice that, then I can decide to say, I will there be light. Beholding them, you do not know your brothers nor yourself. Your will is lost to you in this strange bartering, in which guilt is traded back and forth, and grievances increase with each exchange. You can probably think of an occasion when you got pulled into thinking you were done wrong, and all of a sudden you're saying something that you didn't consider hardly at all before it came out of your mouth. The other person reacts the same way, and it comes back to you, and back and forth a couple times, and the next thing you know, you think, how did this happen? And it feels rotten, at least it does to me. So there we are, bartering, losing our will, guilt being traded back and forth, and grievances increase with each exchange. Can such a world have been created by the will the Son of God shares with his Father? Did God create disaster for his Son? Creation is the will of both, and in this case, both is capitalized, both us and God, me and God. Would God create a world that kills himself? Those last few sentences remind me of a theme that's come up recently, and it's similar to the way it's used in A Course in Miracles, but in A Course of Love, and that is that reason does not oppose love. This whole course approaches us with reason in a pretty different way than we're used to doing it. But listen to the questions that are being asked of the truth of me that says, after the sentence about bartering guilt and increasing with each exchange, here are the questions that are being asked of us. Can such a world have been created by the will the Son of God shares with his Father? When I claim my identity as a child of God, part of the one Son, the only one Son that God has, then the question is, can I really believe that if I'm the Son of God, that that's what God would create? And then the next statement says, did God create disaster for his Son? Creation is the will of both, meaning I have to join with God to actually be in creation instead of in an ego world that seems very real when I'm here. And then one more question. Would God create a world that kills himself? We are part of God. We are part of both us and God. And so would God create a situation where we would be participating in killing him? It's really pretty amazing stuff, and we go right past it. And actually, we're supposed to until it lands for us. So when I went through this lesson the first 3 or 4 times, starting 20 years ago, different things came out for me. And when you go through it, as you're doing whatever stage you're in, you will receive the parts that you're ready for whatever reason, because it's today, because you're the age you are, because of what's going on around you. And you probably have had the same experience where you'll go back and you've read this before, and you read it and you think, this is like, I have never seen this before at all. It's like, did I really read this? And to me, that keeps happening, which to me is part of the miracle of this awesome message and teaching, that it's here in a book that we can keep going back to whenever we want. We can carry it with us, have it with us, and use it, and that it's fresh all the time. It's woven together in a way that's both reason and love and suggested practices, coaching to will. Use my will to choose light. I will there be light. So it continually, in some ways, it keeps repeating and repeating and repeating. And good for you if you're deep enough into it to have noticed that for yourself, because that's really what it's doing. But it comes from here, and then here, and then here, and then it drops on your head. And the more stubborn I am in my ego world, the more times I have to be in a situation that gets my attention and helps me remember that I can choose differently. I have some power here. I can choose again. So long ago, I heard a teacher say, don't worry if you don't get the message the first time around. She said, it'll come back and stronger. You know, if you don't get it the next time, it'll come back and stronger, and it'll come back the same lesson in a different form, a different time and place, until it sort of gets through our thick skulls and says, tap, tap, tap. You could do this differently. You could think about this differently. You could see this brother or sister more lovingly. You could think about letting go of your grievances. You could practice and experiment and try out what's in here and see what happens. So today, we will try once more to reach the world which is in accordance with your will. The light is in it because it does not oppose the will of God. It is not heaven, but the light of heaven shines on it. Darkness has vanished. The ego's idle wishes have been withdrawn. Yet the light which shines upon the world reflects your will. And so it must be in you that we look for it. Your picture of the world can only mirror what is within. The source of neither light nor darkness can be found without. Ha, that puts it right back on me, huh? The source of neither light nor darkness can be found out there. It's not that person's fault. It's not that law's fault. It's not that politician's fault. It's basically me. Now, the first thing ego says is, what? I can't, that's not true. I'm not, that's ridiculous. I can't be that stupid, that dumb, that guilty, whatever it is. And when you can let that in even a little bit, that's pretty cool news. It's like, I don't have to fix, change, or do anything about what's out from me. It's like an inside job. And nobody even has to know I'm working on that job, except maybe from the results. So I get to do it. I can try it. You know, I can, in the quiet, test out some of the things that are suggested here, really do as best I can what the lessons and the workbooks are telling me, and try it, because it's in my power. I don't believe that to start with. I think one of the reasons I was able to do it is I actually started the Course in Miracles after I retired from being a researcher for 20 years. So I was into the experiment and test and whatever, where you do experiments, partly to collect data and hopefully prove a point in a corporation. And I kept thinking, well, I'm an experimenter. I know how to do that. I'm willing to try it. And when you start an experiment, you do it partly because you don't know the answer. Right? You don't know the answer. That's the point. And so you collect what you think you should be trying or testing or whatever, and you see what happens. So the sequence may be, you're feeling really rotten for whatever reason. You feel guilty or angry or put upon. Okay, so that's your signal. That's like the knock on the side of the head that says, okay, I could get your attention now. If the first thing you do is in some way pause, stop, don't keep talking, don't keep responding on the emails, don't nurture the grievance, pause. And then, as part of that pause, you can more actively turn it over and say, ask for help. You can ask whatever being you use, for whatever language you use to address the power that's not us, the true power, God, Spirit, the universe, love. And it can be as simple as, I don't know what's going on here, but I don't like the way I'm feeling. Please help me. I'm gonna stop and pay attention to what kind of response you can send me. It may come in all kinds of ways. Sometimes it's a thought or an idea. Sometimes it lands in your journal. Sometimes somebody on the radio is saying something that really grabs your attention. And that's for you. So you get some help, and you watch and you wait. It can happen quickly. It doesn't always happen quickly. I'll use the example that most of you know of me looking for a place that I wanted to live, which I started pretty close to a year ago. And you'd hear me like fussing and looking and nothing happening. I started about April, and I was thinking I needed to want to buy a duplex so that I could help defray what to me were crazy costs of buying anything around here, and have some help on that. But what I really wanted was a place to have room for people to gather, at least a small group, possibly even a bigger kind of a group. I wanted to be near water. When I was doing my wish list, let's put it on the ground floor as long as we're at it. I was walking up 3 floors or going up an elevator and walking 100 paces down to my apartment and figuring out where to park depending on what I had to get in and out of my car so I could minimize that. And while I'm at it, let's say I can park nearby. I want green space. I want to be able to look out at least some of my windows and see green. It would be nice if I was near, it could kayak or bicycle ride or walk. So all these things. Oh, and then toward the end, like even after I had to switch realtors when my 40-year-old realtor died completely unexpectedly, it was almost like the universe was saying, you only thought that this was supposed to keep going this way. So I was jolted, and I was his customer for a handful of months. He worked in a group of 6 or 7 partners who all knew each other well. They were owner brokers, so they shared the work. And so somebody in that group was the one who had to pick up my case. And I knew that they weren't going to be ready immediately. And even 2 weeks later, when I touched base with a lovely woman that I'd met briefly before and her sister, it was like it never quite gelled. Partly it was now the end of October, early November, so that's not a great season to be looking for rent or any kind of property. And it's not going to get better. The weather's, the holidays and the weather, and it just sort of goes into a deep freeze for a while. So when I actually let it go, then it's like I was discouraged at that point. And right over here on December 9th, after the talk, I was sitting 1 row back, and Irene Tompkinson turned around and said, how's the property search going? And I just said, and she almost whispered, well, David and I have a place that's for rent. And I kind of looked at her, it's like my ego had it all planned out that I had to buy something, right? So a rental place. But then I thought, oh, she's got that big space that I could probably use sometime. And it's like, and I'd be on the same site as where they were. And so by Saturday morning, that was Friday, of course, because it was here. Saturday morning, relatively early, I sent a text and I said, I would like to come see that unit, please. I got an immediate text back from Irene that says, come now, come now. And so I thought, well, I'm still in my pajamas, so I had to get ready and get there. But by the time I got there, David was acting as agent and showing it around. And I thought I could live here. And it has space. It's the first floor of what was the old New Englander house, most of it. I think maybe all of it. And the use of the basement underneath it, which it's been a decade probably since I really had use of a messy space, maybe not quite that long, to do things like refinish furniture or go even paint something or sand something down or do anything I didn't want to do on the living room wooden floors or the carpet. And so to me, that was also a bonus. And then by the time David did a driving tour 3 miles down to the Atlantic Ocean coast and up and around the whole area, it's like I thought, oh, I think this is, like the beach alone might have been enough to convince me. So then after that, there was still my son and his girlfriend and the dog came for only the second time since I've lived here for 5 years to visit. And they brought me any stray pieces of furniture from Pittsburgh that my son was finished with or he thought I might still like. So he brings another chest and a piece that goes on it and another piece and a big outdoor table. So it's like we're all in this existing apartment at the time, sort of like moving between the furniture that just barely has room to sit there till we go down. But Greg was able to deliver the outdoor table to the new place, to see it, to suggest. He says, Mom, you know how much easier it is to paint when the place is empty? If I were you, meanwhile, this is like the end of December and I'm supposed to be moving in January 16th. He said, if I were you, I'd go get 3 bids and choose a painter and have the whole place painted before you move in. Well, when he told me, it was like evening, and I thought, oh, I don't know whether I have the energy to do this. But by the next morning, something great about mornings for me, I was ready and willing to do that, and darned if it didn't work. And I ended up picking a painter who had worked with, or for whom David Tompkinson had worked, and he knew David, so both of them were working there for a while and getting it all ready. So it's like the whole thing took patience, number one, and some kind of willingness and trust that what I was really looking for would come. And all along I sort of thought, I knew that, which doesn't always help you a lot until it's over, but I knew that it would come in a form that I didn't expect. There would be a big surprise about the way it came in. Yeah, I had to have a realtor. I had to look and do some comparison and check neighborhoods and cities and towns and whatever. But the idea that that's the way it would come in was the complete come out of left field kind of thing. But that was the key in this case. And so it's partly you choose to pause and you say something about what you want. In my case, it was partly where I wanted to live. It might be, I don't like the way I feel. And then you watch for the answer. It may be immediate. It may be 9 months later. But you sort of trust, partly because you're not in such a great place anyway, so what do I have to lose by looking around and watching for something that's better? And then there's another piece. In addition to I will, which often can in our day in, day out world imply ego, it's like, I will do this. There's also that letting go and trusting. It's like let go of the detachment of how the outcome is going to look, or the attachment to how the outcome is going to look, and allow it to be better than you can imagine. Because if you can do that, it turns out, and A Course in Miracles tells us fairly often, that it asks questions, and again, it's using reason. Would you know the plan that would be the best possible thing for everybody in the past and the future and everybody involved? Not really. I'm too worried about what I think I want. But if I can allow the outcome to be guided, then things that I couldn't even imagine come to me, or wouldn't even know to imagine. And I can trust that it's good for the people around me now and in the future across the world. It's kind of like, as an experimenter, what do you have to lose?
Just wondered if
Oh, wait, a microphone here.
Here comes.
I just wondered, during the process, did you keep asking?
Well, I at least mentally revisited, here's where I am. I don't particularly like that it's taking so long. And then I would think, well, I'm not forced to move like I had the previous move I made when the landlady gave me 2 months notice that the condo was going to be sold and I couldn't rent it anymore. So I was on a month-to-month lease, and it was like, yeah, I guess I mentally asked myself, so should I be doing something, anything different? And when I got to the place where I thought, nope, I'm staying where I am. I certainly sure don't want to move twice if I don't have to. So after I tried it on, I would just say, here I am. We'll see what happens. So in a way, by going back to being willing to let something happen, of course, at that point, you don't know for sure that it really will, or you think it won't.
But you always felt that connection with the divine throughout the whole process.
Yes, and it's kind of like, at this point, I feel like I'm willing to be of service, and so it was my idea of where I could be most comfortable and settled to provide that service. And I figured that's a collaboration of some kind with the divine, with God, and so it's like, okay,
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. All right, let's do a little bit more, and then here in not too long, there's a chance for you to do this a little bit for yourself today. We have repeatedly emphasized that the barrier of grievances is easily passed and cannot stand between you and salvation. The reason is very simple. Do you really want to be in hell? Do you really want to weep and suffer and die? Forget the ego's arguments, which seek to prove all this is really heaven. You know it is not so. You cannot want this for yourself. So there again, A Course in Miracles is using reason. Do you really want to be in hell? Do you want to feel this rotten when you get to the place where that's what it is? Or do you want another choice? There's a point beyond which illusions cannot go. Suffering is not happiness, and it is happiness you really want. Such is your will in truth. So there, our will in truth is connected to God. The very next lesson is, there is no will but God. So this one says, I will there be light. And the next one reminds us that when I do that, I'm really joining with God. That if I'm in truth and being myself, I'm joining with God. And so that's part of that pause, let it go, allow it to take its course. There's no point beyond which illusions cannot go. Suffering is not happiness, and it's happiness you really want. Such is your will in truth. And so salvation is your will as well. You want to succeed in what we are trying to do today. We undertake it with your blessing and with your glad accord. We will succeed today if you remember that you will salvation for yourself. You will to accept God's plan because you share it. You have no will that can really oppose it, and you do not want to do so. Salvation is for you. And above all else, you want the freedom to remember who you really are. Today, it is the ego which stands powerless before your will. I will there be light, and the ego stands powerless when I declare that. Your will is free, and nothing can prevail against it. And there's a footnote to a biblical quote from Matthew that says, and I say unto thee, thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. So when we have joined with the will of God, when we have allowed ego to be set aside, when we've deliberately said, okay, I'm not going to try to force this through and do it my way, then we've joined with God, and there's gates of hell will not prevail against it kind of force in the making. But it's not the same kind of force that I know as an ego person when I plodded through some things that were really miserable at the time, maybe should have even stopped. At one point, before I went to be a researcher, I was teaching in the Pittsburgh public schools. I'd been in teacher corps, and been trained in the city schools and had teaching positions at 2, maybe 3 different schools at one point. At one point, I got to go to a city school that tended to be mostly academic and teach chemistry for the first semester. But that was when the teacher was on sabbatical. So the second semester, I got put somewhere else. And I got put somewhere else into a school that was right down by the steel mills when the steel mills were still on their way out, but functioning. It was the only school in the city that was half and half, black and white. And it was a junior high class. I think it was, I don't remember whether it was 7th grade or 9th grade. And the very first day I got there, I was told that as a teacher, I needed to stand outside the door to the classroom and watch the hall as kids went in. And there were like 5 classes, and they came and they went, and I had lunch, and I went back. The very last class of the day, I'm out in the hall dutifully doing what I'm supposed to do. And I turn around to go in when the bell rings, and the whole class with their desktop seats was sitting there just like this, looking kind of angelic. And there's like 100 feet of clothesline wrapped everywhere, you know, like around them, around the chairs, in the aisles, just everywhere they could do it. It's kind of like, okay, this is day 1. I know no names. And I'm still pretty young, and junior high is always more challenging for me anyway. There's people to whom I grant great appreciation who do junior high school teaching really well. Jan, thank you. But I was never really one of them. So luckily, there was also a great big vice principal who walked the halls, and he came soon after that and peeked in. Well, he knew what was going on. He knew names. Okay, guys, you know, undo the rope, you know, settle in. And then, of course, that took maybe 5 minutes. And I thought, And then he says, okay, now go ahead and teach. And he left. So somehow or another, I got through whatever I was planning. I think I was using a publication for junior high kids about science, and we were going to read it and talk about it and maybe do some questions and answers or something somehow. And I got to at least the middle of that semester. Oh, the other side of that story is at that school, they'd driven out, I think, 4 teachers the first semester. So I was just the next one. You know, it wasn't just that it was second semester. It was that they had this game going, right? So in the middle of that semester, someday, I don't even remember what caused it, but I was so disgusted and so discouraged that I was walking down the hall, and if I could get past the teacher's room and out the door to my car, I was going to get in that car, and I didn't care about permanent teaching certification. I didn't care what it would look like. I was leaving. Somebody caught me as I was going by the teacher's room and pulled me in, and I don't know what they did, but somehow or another, I went back, and I made it through the whole semester. But it was one of those things that I wasn't clued in enough to ask for help or to realize that I could have had another. I was taken care of in some way, but it wasn't fun. I lost weight, and it worked, but that will was more like my force of who knows what, stubbornness or something, as opposed to I'm willing that there be light, where I actually join with my power, my higher power, the truth of me. And it's both willing in a, I intend this to happen, and an allowing and a letting go. It's a little different in that way. All right, so how did I get off on that? Therefore, we undertake the exercises for today in happy confidence, certain that we will find what it is your will to find, and remember what it is your will to remember. So there you go. See, it's not saying there's a particular answer. It's like I'm going to tap into my own will in connection with God, and we're going to find what it is. I'll have to find the sentence here again. certain that we will find what it is your will to find and remember what it is your will to remember. No idle wishes can detain us, nor deceive us with an illusion of strength. So I used an illusion of strength to get through that last half of that second semester with junior high kids. Today, let your will be done and end forever the insane belief that it's hell in place of heaven that you choose. We will begin our longer practices with the recognition of God's plan for salvation, and only His is wholly in accord with your will. It's not the purpose of an alien power thrust upon you unwillingly. It's the one purpose here on which you and your Father are in perfect accord. You will succeed today the time appointed for the release of the Son of God from hell and from all idle wishes. That's a big promise, and it's a big invitation for us to experiment, try it, test it out, and see what happens. His will, the will of the Son of God, is now restored to his awareness. He is willing this very day to look upon the light in him or her and be saved. After reminding yourself of this and determining to keep your will clearly in mind, tell yourself with gentle firmness and quiet certainty, I will there be light. Let me behold the light that reflects God's will and mine. Then let your will assert itself, joined to the power of God and united with yourself. Put the rest of the practice period under their guidance. Join with them as they lead the way. So we've got the time. I'd like to ask you to experiment right now on the spot. So get yourself a little bit comfortable, and I'll read the instructions again briefly and then give you maybe 10 minutes of quiet time and seeing what comes up, and think about joining the truth of who you are with the will of God, and allowing the will of God to give you a message. Tell yourself with gentle firmness and quiet certainty, I will there be light. Let me behold the light that reflects God's will and mine. I will there be light. Let me behold the light that reflects God's will and mine. Is there anyone who would like to share any insights or experience that you enjoyed? Nancy?
So the word that came to me, the only word that came to me during that period of time was inspiration. And I could only think about how that applies to what you've been teaching about letting go and let God's will be my will, and having patience to let things unfold. So I've been working on a project that came to me, something I wanted to pursue, I'll say a couple of weeks ago. And it was very, very specific, and I hadn't shared it with anyone. And I would get like excited, and then all of a sudden my ego would kick in, and I'd be like, oh, what am I doing? You know, this, oh, I don't want to, that puts myself out there a little too much. So I'd get all, and then I'd get a message, I'd get information would come in, and I'd be like, oh, that's exactly in alignment with what I want to do. So I have to keep going. This is what I'm being called to do. And then yesterday I got into a funk, and it was something I was doing on a business level. And it was, the message kept coming through, you can't do things alone, and, you need to get help, and you can't do all the intricate technical stuff by yourself. And I didn't really know. I got it intellectually. And then through an email a friend sent me about a specific subject about being connected, and, a lot on the realm of how we are all connected, and that being unconnected and isolated creates problems. And she's a pretty dynamic person, and I thought, I need to respond to this because this is all in alignment with what I want to work on. And I'm just like this morning going, I don't have to do this alone. So that was just a recent experience of surrendering. And if I'm experiencing a situation where I'm not at peace, then I must have decided wrongly. And that would be not in the spirit of God. So
Awesome.
thanks for letting me share.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Kathy?
Thank you. I don't know if I'll be all over the place here, but my thoughts are, for years, it was always my will, and I was going to do it my way. And for years, my life was so crazy and upside down because I came to soon believe that through the faith that I got in was that thy will be done. And all I have to do is surrender my will. That's all I had to do. And I see now the difference in my life. I see that, like you, there was many things that came up in my life. And the minute I surrendered, everything came into place. It was me that was stopping God from doing his work in my life, and I still had to do it my way. It's true. I mean, that learning that I learned growing up was that, there's nothing wrong with you. You can do this, just give it a shot. So I always felt like I needed to take some kind of control because God gave me this brain to work with. He gave me these means. And so then I found out that, you can use this brain and these means, but you got to use it the right way. And what a gift today for me. It's such a big gift to know that I'm never alone. Like I felt all my life, I felt alone. I don't care if there was a room full of people like this, I was alone, or if I felt that some man loved me, I was alone because I still had to live with me and I had to still be in this head of mine, And once I learned that surrendering job, boy, what a gift. It was like, what, God, here, you can have it all. I don't even want anymore. But so my life has become really, truly easy. It's absolutely wonderful. There's a lot more that I want to do in my life. And that's where I'm putting my means now. That's where I'm putting this brain of mine in healthier things in my life. But I had to learn this. And this is just being true to myself, that I've come to also realize that nobody can do that for me. Nobody can give that love of self. Nobody can
Yes,
give anything to me other than the God of my understanding. People are just an expression of his love for me, and
Yes.
and I know what I can give out and what I have to keep for myself today. Years past, I gave it all and had nothing left for me, and I don't do that anymore, so I'm grateful for where I am today. And the reason I got here is because of God, because he's in my life. It's the only reason. So I keep coming because I just want to have this most wonderful life that he's gifted me with. And how do I do that is by coming to these things and learning about what God wants in my life. So thanks for sharing, Nancy. It was great to hear you.
Thank you, Kathy. I always like to hear your affirmations.
Good morning. It was wonderful to hear your story. I too, my landlady told me she was selling the house. I was renting a room. I had 2 months to leave. I ended up living in my car for 8 months. And it's interesting you said that your time of transition took 9 months. And I lived in my car. I stayed in the parking lot of Walmart. And I slept underneath the high power tension wires at night. I did find a place. I live with a very nice woman now. I'm renting a room from her. So it all worked out. But I got to see the sunrise every morning. And I'm grateful for that. And in that quiet time, I envisioned a small campfire in my belly that is burning with the light. And I hope it keeps burning. Thank you for your share.
Thank you, Patrick.
Good morning. It's nice to be with all of you. First of all, I had an experience, like Nancy was talking about. I was, my ego was desperately searching for an answer to something. And I was desperately trying to choose between a few different ways of how to get my answer. And and somehow I managed to halt or pause, and I just kept pausing, and someone reached out to me, and it totally feels like the answer. So I just want to acknowledge that, and I also want to acknowledge. You talked a little bit in the reading. It says about your true self, and it said something about freedom. I remember them a half an hour ago, but I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I just really celebrate you, Nancy, and your true self, and the change since I've come here. There's no index cards with notes. There's no. You're so. I see so much freedom expanding in you. And I just really love you and celebrate that.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right. One more little tail end on the lesson, because it says in shorter practice periods, the rest of the day, again, make a declaration of what you really want. Say, I will there be light. Darkness is not my will. This should be repeated several times an hour. It's most important, however, to apply today's idea in this form immediately when you are tempted to hold a grievance of any kind. This will help you let grievances go instead of cherishing them and hiding them in the darkness. So you can hang on to that for the rest of the day at least. I will there be light. You ready to close out or pretty close?
I got 5 minutes.
What else?
I can tell you a story.
Okay.
I'll share.
Do you need the mic?
I'll come up there. So I think
Okay.
okay.
Because you can't put yourself on the camera.
I can if I come up here.
Yeah.
You stay here. I guess this lesson here, we just did the healing retreat in Mexico, and one of the big things was, and it just, I don't know why it took this long. It went, I am light. I take this light, send it out ahead of us. Now, this is an all-day practice continuing all the time. I'm sending that light out. So we're coming home from Mexico. Now, we haven't looked at the news or weather really or nothing. We had no idea. It's snowing like crazy in New England. It's 84 degrees in Mexico. We don't really care what's going on here, even though we're denying the fact that we're heading into it. So we get on the flight in Mexico. It's so nice, and it's just a great flight. And we get to Atlanta. Well, that's where you go through customs. We have 1 hour and 20 minutes in Atlanta. And not knowing that almost all flights on the Eastern Seaboard have been canceled, delayed. There are people everywhere, and they are mad people. So you gotta keep sending that light out there. So Bonnie and I are going through, like, we got to do this. So we're in this line, this snaky line. They have like 4 customs agents. The first thing, because then we could see all these planes coming off too. We're like, oh, we're not the only plane going through customs. There are planes coming in from everywhere. And I looked at her, I said, did they shut the government down while we were gone? And we didn't know. It's like, no. So anyway, so we're in that line, and it's an example of staying in that light, in that moment, constantly going, I have no control over this. I have no control over customs, no control over all the people. All you can do is, like, I have 1 hour and 20 minutes. I will make my plane. I will make my plane. And it was just, we were going around. And finally we got through there, and then they go, oh, you got to go get your suitcases. We're like, what? So then we had to go find our suitcases and do all this. But we constantly had to stay in that all the time. Like when I would start doubting, Bonnie would say, no, he's got this. We've got a guide. We got this. And we're like, okay, because you kind of want to go home. I don't want to be in Atlanta for longer than I have to. So we made it through. We got through the customs. We had to go through security again. And we actually got a lunch before we got on the plane. And then we got on the plane, and then the guy says, this is the Boston Logan flight, otherwise known as the plane going to the City of Champions. So the whole plane erupts. And then we got into Logan at 10:30 at night, and he said, congratulations, you're the first plane on time today. Nobody else made it on time. So it was just an example of, because it's easy to get yourself just start going
frantic.
Yeah, like, oh, I'm not going to make it. And there's really nothing you can do, right? It's not like you can go, hey, custom agent, well, let's get going faster. That ain't happening. So anyway, that's just an example of staying in the light all the time. And I love this lesson. I love you, Nancy.
Thank you.
You did a great job.
I love you too, sweetie. All right.
Now we can pray out.
Now we can make our circle and close out. Yay.
Hi, Nancy.
Hi, Skelly.
Sorry,
Thank
I
you.
was the whole thing, but it was
Well, we get
great.
to
What I
get-
heard was
yeah.
awesome. I'll watch the rest of it online.
All right. There's a huge bubble of light that's centered right here because we just generated it, and we're taking it with us, like Becky described, for our benefit and for the benefit of everybody we pass by. Indulge me a minute while I talk a little bit about the words for the blessing for the love box, which we're invited to put something in. It always gets said so fast that I want to slow it down. So here's what I'm thinking. Divine love, we're all calling on what joins us and what we are. As me, It's in me. It is me. I get to express it. Blesses and multiplies all that I am in truth, all that I have, all that I give, not just to the love box, but all that I give and all that I receive. So I couldn't give if you weren't here to receive. And I thank you for that. And we might want to say it together now to bless the offerings that will go in that love box. So, divine love as me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Amen. Take the light with you. Thank you, Kelly. Namaste. It's just so, yeah, it's so cool to me that we look